rest stop officially closed at midnight. At 12:07 a.m., a minivan pulled in anyway, and the driver thanked me for letting him leave. I didn't know what he meant by that. Not then. Rest Stop 43 sat alone along a dead stretch of interstate, the kind of place you only noticed when your tank was low or your eyes were burning from too many miles of dark road. 2 bathroom wings, a vending alcove, a glass-fronted attendant booth that smelled faintly of burnt coffee and disinfectant. No restaurant, no security, just me. The job was temporary, graveyard coverage while they reevaluated staffing needs. My supervisor, a man I'd never met in person, handed me a clipboard at the regional office and said, "You close at midnight. You stay until morning." I asked what I was supposed to do after midnight. He hesitated, then said, "Follow the rules." I found them taped to the inside wall of the booth, laminated and yellowed at the edges. Overnight procedures. Rest Stop 43. Lock the main doors at 12 a.m. sharp. Leave vending machines powered on. Do not give accurate directions after midnight. If someone asks where they are, tell them, "Almost there." If someone asks for a map, give them the wrong one. If a vehicle arrives after midnight, do not go outside. If you hear knocking on the glass, stay seated. If someone thanks you for letting them leave, do not correct them. I laughed when I finished reading. Nervous laughter, sure, but still laughter. It felt like a bad joke, some kind of hazing ritual for night workers. At 11:58 p.m., a sedan pulled out of the lot. The taillights vanished down the ramp. Silence settled in, thick and absolute. At exactly midnight, the automatic locks clicked. The doors sealed with a dull, final sound. I checked my watch. Then the cameras. Empty lot. Empty highway. 7 minutes later, headlights swept across the glass. A minivan rolled in slow, tires crunching on gravel that hadn't made a sound all night. It parked crooked, engine cutting off without a tick or hiss. I stayed seated, just like the rules said. The driver stepped out, middle-aged, smiling. He walked up to the door that shouldn't have opened, and it did. He leaned into the booth window and said, cheerful and relieved, "Thanks. I was worried we'd missed it." "Missed what?" I asked. He blinked, confused, then smiled wider. "Midnight," he said. "Thanks for letting us leave." Something in my chest tightened. I glanced at the clipboard. Rule number 8 stared back at me. I didn't correct him. Behind him, his family waited in the van, faces pale in the dashboard glow. The man took the map I handed him, the wrong one, flipped upside down, and nodded like everything finally made sense. As they drove away, I noticed something that made my hands start to shake. On the security monitor, the parking lot was still empty, and the clock above the booth still read 12:07 a.m. The minivan didn't appear on the cameras when it left either. I kept checking, cycling through every angle, refreshing the feed, tapping the monitor like it might wake up if I hit it hard enough. The lot stayed empty. The highway stayed dark. But the echo of the man's smile lingered in the booth like a smell you couldn't air out. At 12:19 a.m., another vehicle arrived. This time, I heard it, or thought I did. A soft crunch of tires, the faintest suggestion of an engine idling. A pickup truck eased into the lot and stopped beneath a flickering street lamp. The lamp buzzed once, then steadied. I stayed seated. A man in a trucker cap approached the door. He knocked, slow and polite, knuckles resting against the glass afterward like he expected it to answer back. Rule 7. I didn't move. The door opened anyway. He stepped inside, rubbing his eyes like he'd just woken from a nap. "Hey," he said, "how long was I out?" I asked what he meant. "Pulled over to rest," he said. "Must have nodded off. Sun's not up yet, right?" "No," I said, then stopped myself. The rules pressed in on me, heavy and insistent. "Almost there." He nodded like that was the answer he'd hoped for. "Figured." He glanced toward the bathrooms. "Still standing?" "Still standing," I repeated. He smiled, relieved, grateful, and thanked me for letting him go. By 12:40, the rest stop was busy. Not crowded, just occupied. A woman in a torn sweater asked for directions to a town I recognized from an old highway sign museum, one that hadn't existed since the late 80s. A teenager stood by the vending machines, staring at a candy bar with a wrapper dated 5 years in the future. A man with a dark stain spreading across his shirt asked if his family had already passed through. They all moved wrong. Not like monsters. Like people running on bad information. Conversations looped, questions repeated. No one ever mentioned the time unless I did, and when I did, they flinched. "Is it still before midnight?" they asked. I answered the same way every time. "Almost there." Outside, cars came and went without sound. No headlights passed on the highway, no wind, no insects. Just the steady fluorescent hum and the smell of ozone every time the doors opened themselves. I tried calling my supervisor. The phone rang once, then clicked to a dead line. At 1:03 a.m., a woman stepped up to the booth and said my name. Not asked it, said it. She looked tired, burnt out in a way sleep wouldn't fix. "You don't remember me," she said. "But I remember you. You were behind me." "Behind you where?" She hesitated, eyes flicking toward the lot. "On the road, when it happened." My stomach dropped. I'd been in an accident years ago on this same stretch of interstate. A drunk driver, a night like this one. I'd walked away. She leaned closer to the glass. Her reflection didn't line up with her face. "You already passed through once," she said softly. "Did they let you leave again?" Behind her, the doors opened, and for the first time since midnight, something knocked back. The knocking came from everywhere at once. Glass, metal, the hollow spaces inside the walls. It wasn't loud. It was patient. Like whatever was doing it knew I would run out of places to hide before it ran out of time. I found the logbook under the counter while the visitors milled aimlessly behind me, their conversations looping in soft, overlapping murmurs. The book was thick, bound in cracked black vinyl, the kind of thing no one bothered to replace because no one was supposed to notice it. The first entry was dated 1974. Different handwriting, same rules. Page after page described the same pattern. Midnight, arrivals, wrong maps, grateful smiles. Some attendants wrote in detail, others barely wrote at all, their entries clipped and shaky, as if the act of recording was dangerous. Some pages ended abruptly. Some ended with a single sentence, written darker than the rest. They stayed. I flipped faster, dread building with every name. No last names, just first names and dates. Weeks, months, years. A margin note caught my eye, underlined twice. "This place is not for resting. It is for sorting." The writer went on to explain, people who died on the road, quickly, suddenly, didn't always know it. Some felt pain, some felt nothing at all. The rest stop gave them a moment, a pause, a lie gentle enough to keep them moving. Midnight mattered. Before it, they could still pass through. After it, they started to realize. That's why the rules existed. The knocking intensified when someone asked the wrong question. I glanced toward the bathrooms. The mirrors were wrong. Not distorted, delayed. Reflections lagged a second behind the movements that caused them. In one mirror, I saw myself standing still while my reflection turned its head to watch someone behind me. The vending machines hummed louder than they should have. When I pressed a button, a candy bar dropped with a dull thud. The wrapper was brittle. The expiration date stamped 1996. A child cried near the sinks. No one went to comfort him. I found my own name in the logbook near the end. Not today's date. Years ago. Was here before. Didn't stay. Assignment deferred. My hands shook so badly I nearly tore the page. Memories stirred. Headlights, metal screaming, the sensation of being lifted out of my body for just a moment too long. I'd been here before. I just hadn't been working. A voice crackled over the intercom, soft and pleasant. "Attendant," it said, "please remain at your station." The visitors turned toward me in unison. Their faces had changed, not monstrous, just clearer, more aware. The woman who knew my name met my eyes again. "You're not supposed to tell us," she said. "You're supposed to send us on." I looked down at the map in my hands. The wrong one. Folded and unfolded so many times the creases felt permanent. Outside, the parking lot was full now, but the cameras still showed nothing at all. The family arrived just after 2 a.m. I noticed them because they didn't wander. They stood close together near the entrance doors, the parents holding hands so tightly their knuckles had gone white. The little girl clutched a stuffed rabbit with one ear torn clean off. She stared at me like she already knew I was the one who mattered. The mother approached the booth slowly. "Are we late?" she asked. Her voice trembled on the last word. I opened my mouth to say, "Almost there." The phrase rose up automatically, drilled into me by the rules and the weight of the logbook and the intercom's watching hum. But I hesitated. "We were on our way to visit my sister," the mother said. "There was a truck. It came out of nowhere." The father swallowed hard. "Please," he added, "just tell us where we are." The knocking returned, sharper this time. Lights flickered overhead, buzzing angrily. The intercom crackled, but no voice came through. I looked at the child. Her rabbit's glass eye was cracked, spider-webbed like a windshield. "You're at rest stop 43, I said. The words landed wrong. The temperature dropped instantly. Breath fogged in the air. The doors rattled in their frames as if something outside was testing them. The mother frowned. "No," she said slowly. That's not right." I reached for the map rack and pulled out a clean one, the correct one. I flattened it on the counter and traced a finger along the interstate. "This is where you crashed," I said. "This is where it ended." The lights went out. Not all at once, section by section, plunging the rest stop into a patchwork of shadow. Red emergency lights blinked on above the exits. Somewhere in the walls, something heavy shifted. The family stared at me as understanding crept in, ugly and unavoidable. The father backed away, shaking his head. "No," he whispered. "We can't." The child began to cry. The intercom screamed to life. "Protocol breach," the voice boomed, no longer pretending to be kind. "Attendant, resume duties." The visitors reacted like animals sensing a predator. Some ran for the doors, others collapsed where they stood. The woman who knew my name covered her ears and screamed as shadows peeled themselves off the walls of the bathroom corridor. I felt something lock into place behind my eyes. A pressure, a certainty. The clipboard slid across the counter by itself. A pen rested neatly on top. On the final blank page of the logbook, my name was written in steady, practiced letters. The doors unlocked. Outside, the siren began to wail, not loud, but close. Too close. And I understood what the rules had been protecting them from. Not the truth, but what came when the truth was spoken aloud. The siren never stopped. It didn't rise or fall. It didn't pulse. It just existed, vibrating through the concrete and into my bones, like the rest stop itself was humming in pain. The family was gone. Not escaped. Gone. No footprints, no shadows. Just the stuffed rabbit lying on the floor near the doors, its remaining glass eye staring up at the emergency lights. I bent to pick it up, then stopped. The rules didn't say anything about touching what was left behind, and that felt worse than a warning. The visitors reorganized themselves without being told. Calm returned, artificial and forced. Conversations resumed in low tones. The woman who knew my name avoided looking at me now. The intercom clicked once. "Thank you for your cooperation," the voice said, pleasant again. "Please complete your shift." I checked the clock. 12:07 a.m. It hadn't moved. I tried the doors. Locked. I tried the phone. Dead. I tried the cameras. Still empty. Still showing a vacant lot, even though I could see cars through the glass now, dozens of them, parked at odd angles, some half on the grass, some with doors hanging open. I went back to the booth because there was nowhere else to go. The logbook lay open, pen waiting. My handwriting filled the most recent entries, describing things I hadn't done yet with unsettling accuracy. Times, phrases, smiles I would pretend were normal. A final note waited at the bottom of the page. Morning coverage pending. I laughed then. A short, broken sound. Morning never came. The sky beyond the lot stayed the same deep, unyielding black. No stars, no moon. The highway looped past the rest stop again and again, the same stretch of asphalt repeating like a mistake no one bothered to fix. At 11:58, whenever that meant now, a sedan pulled out of the lot. A lone man behind the wheel, shoulders slumped with relief. I watched him go, already knowing what he would say. At midnight, the locks clicked. At 12:07, headlights swept across the glass. A young man stepped inside, clutching a clipboard identical to mine. He looked exhausted, nervous, hopeful in the way only someone who still believed this was temporary could be. "I'm covering graveyard," he said. "They told me you'd show me the ropes." I handed him the laminated rules, watched his eyes skim them, watched him laugh. "You close at midnight," I told him gently. "You stay until morning." He nodded, grateful for the clarity. As he took his place behind the booth, a car pulled into the lot. I didn't look back as I walked toward the bathrooms. The mirrors reflected me properly now, solid, aligned. Behind me, I heard the new attendant greet a driver through the glass. "Thanks," the man said cheerfully. "I was worried we'd missed it." And somewhere deep in the walls, the rest stop settled, ready for another night of letting people leave. They say some places exist only to be passed through. You don't stop, you don't look too closely, and you don't ask the wrong questions. If you've ever driven late at night and felt the road stretch longer than it should, if you've ever pulled into a rest stop you don't remember seeing on the map, and if someone inside smiled a little too kindly and told you that you were almost there, take the wrong directions. Thank them for letting you leave. And don't look back once you're back on the highway. Because some shifts never end, and some doors only open once. If this story stayed with you, consider subscribing to Campfire Horror Stories for more true-style horror told from places you were never meant to stop. Leave a comment if you've ever been on a road at night that didn't feel quite right. And if you want to help this channel grow, a like goes a long way. Drive safe, and don't miss midnight.